The Fremont factory may be unionizing. Tesla denies the latest China factory rumors, and we have a whole bunch of Model 3 rumors today. Here are your Tesla tidbits for February 10th, 2017. This is an interesting one, as we've got two sides to the story here. We'll start at the beginning, where Teslarati reports that a Fremont factory worker has spoken out about working conditions at the factory. Jose Moran describes long hours and low pay, and that many of his co-workers are fed up. Quote, "Many of us have been talking about unionizing and have reached out to the United Auto Workers for support. The company has begun to respond. In November, they offered a raise to employees' base pay, the first we've seen in a very long time," end quote. Moran alleges that employees have been required to sign confidentiality agreements forbidding them from speaking publicly about wages or working conditions. He added, quote, "Management actions are feeding workers fears about speaking out. Recently, every worker was required to sign a confidentiality policy that threatens consequences if we exercise our right to speak out about wages and working conditions. Thankfully, 5 members of the California State Assembly have written a letter to Tesla questioning the policy and calling for a retraction," end quote. Moran says he's proud to work for Tesla, but that, quote, "Injuries, poor morale, unfair promotions, high turnover, and other issues aren't just bad for workers, they also impact the quality and speed of production. They can't be resolved without workers having a voice and being included in the process," end quote. The other side of this story comes to us from Gizmodo, with Elon painting a very different picture. Via direct message to Gizmodo on Twitter, Elon did concede that, quote, "There is sometimes mandatory overtime if we are trying to make up for a production stoppage, but it is dropping almost every week," end quote. He went on to allege, quote, "Our understanding is that this guy was paid by the UAW to join Tesla and agitate for a union. He doesn't really work for us, he works for the UAW. Frankly, I find this attack to be morally outrageous. Tesla is the last car company left in California because costs are so high. The UAW killed NUMMI and abandoned the workers at our Fremont plant in 2010. They have no leg to stand on," end quote. Now, both sides of the story leave me with a bit of doubt. Firstly, if California is anything at all like Ohio, they have a Department of Safety and Health for this exact reason, and there are regular inspections. There are anonymous tip lines for folks to report unsafe working conditions, and generally all manner of way that there is just no way a company can get away with such an accusation in the 21st century. I'm very much on the side of Tesla here. Now, I admit I have a very strong and obvious bias here, but they've yet to give me any reason not to believe them on most any issue. Unless, of course, we're talking about shipping products on time, but I digress. On the flip side, Elon's accusation is a very serious one, an extremely hard one to prove on top of that, and no evidence has been provided. If there's one thing we know about Elon, it's that when he feels attacked, he defends vehemently. We saw this with the person attempting to impersonate him via email, and the way the company tracked down and sued them. Hopefully we'll get to see some of this proof in the future. In an everything old is new again situation, we've got a story cropping up that we've already seen once before. Back in June last year, rumors swirled that a $9 billion U.S. deal was in the works for Tesla to construct a factory in China. These rumors have stirred again after leaked documents appear to confirm the same details of last year's rumors. Inside EVs reports that, again, Tesla China denies the rumors. Quote, "Tesla is deeply committed to the Chinese market, and the rumors that are circulating are untrue," end quote. Seems to be a lot of smoke around this story, as it's made the news twice in 7 months now. As always, I'll keep an eye out for any new information as it happens. Lastly today, we also end with another rumor. Model 3 Owners Club released a new video today with some very interesting Model 3 information, but with a huge caveat. Trevor begins the news letting us know that it's coming via about third-hand information and that he has no ability to corroborate. So as he's said, and as I'm going to reiterate it, you should not take this as fact. All that said, this news is every bit as big as yesterday's news if it's true. They're looking to achieve a production ramp about double that of what Model S is currently doing. The order of production looks like it may be shifting as well. Model S and Model X basically got the high-spec cars out the door as quick as they could, and then followed up with the lower-spec cars to finish off the reservations. Most all of us have assumed the same of Model 3, except for the things that we've already been told about employees and existing owners getting first priority, and that the initial batch would be released near the factory to correct any major issues from the get-go. However, Trevor's source says otherwise. Initial production will be equipped with larger battery packs and rear-wheel drive. Following that, a few months later, will be cars with larger packs and with dual motor, and then the rest of production will be released. Interesting that they wouldn't prioritize dual motor cars with the extra premium they'd receive on it. The only thing I can figure is that burning 2 motors for each car places extra cost on the supply side, and shipping the single motor cars first will allow them to get double the cars out the door initially? Initial body panels have been made at the Michigan facility, but they're not the final dies, and they don't have their Schuler press yet installed, which is the behemoth that will do the heavy work on the final production lines. Lastly, the source said that there is a ludicrous-equipped Model 3 that can do a 0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat. Trevor notes that this is a fairly controversial idea, as it's been previously stated that Model S and Model X are the flagships of the company, and all technology would trickle to the Model 3 through them. However, I believe that this isn't out of the question. While we know it won't be getting a 100 kilowatt-hour pack, I have to think we're getting at least 90 as the max battery thanks to the 2170 cells going into the car. Between the smaller battery pack and the smaller overall vehicle size, I have to think that this will be a lighter vehicle, so I wouldn't sleep on this one entirely. Check out the links to today's full stories in the show description. If you get some value out of the show, please consider supporting me at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. Thanks to super patrons John Waltauer, Drew Schuyler, and Cookie UK for their support at the $10 plus level. Also, thanks to Emily J. Hansa Hicks for becoming the show's newest patron. Of course, if you have nothing extra to spare, that is just fine. You can still support the show for free with positive reviews and by spreading word of the show. Speaking of spreading word of the show, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a huge shout out to Teslarati for tweeting out yesterday's show. I really appreciate it, folks. If you have feedback for me, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits. That's all for this week. I'll see you back here again next week. Until then, keep it charged and hit the road.